This is the Global Broadcasting Service, serving remote outposts since 1928.
Hi, everyone. Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express monorail.
Caramba, we have something really big for you today.
Welcome, foolish mortals.
Now then, hang on to them hats and glasses, because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
This is the DBC Pod with Phil Schoen and Jason Dodge. Hey everyone, welcome to this week's pod. This is the show for the week of March 4th, 2024. And Phil, it is warm out, it is fantastic. It's tricking me. I know you live in Florida now, so the weather is always nice for you down there. But up here, we're hitting the 50s and the 60s, and it's really getting my outdoor juices flowing. And I was saying in Discord today, we were talking about when to plan trips and when to go, and somebody was talking about Wheezy, who just got back from his trip. He was saying about how he might want to go Christmas this year, and I absolutely love it. But I think I'm still reminded when I think about my last trip of how cold it was, and I think I'm scarred for life, being cold and wet in Disney World in Orlando. That being said, before we get into anything and explain why Phil moved to Florida, reminder for our social media accounts out there, Twitter, Insta, Facebook, and the YouTube channel at the DBC Pod. And of course, more importantly than anything else, it's the Discord server. If you're not part of the Discord server, please join. And I want to do a call out. I was thinking about this, Phil. I want to do a call out for all of our Discord members out there. If you are listening or watching this right now, go try to invite somebody else in your life that you know is a Disney fan to come to the Discord server. If everybody invited just one person to come on and join the conversation, I think that just makes the community a lot better. And we're just looking to, I think new ideas, new friends is always a good thing. So you don't have to download the podcast or watch it or force content on somebody else, but give them like another group to kind of join in and have the fun. So give that a thought with some of your friends and family out there. We'd appreciate it, but it's enriching all of our lives, I guess. That's maybe a nice way of saying that. But of course, Phil, why don't you tell everybody why you moved to Orlando last week?
It might seem like that, but yeah. So after just coming back from Florida, after going on our cruise, I actually had to go right back down to Florida to the same airport I flew out of, to West Palm Beach, for a work meeting. It was this past Thursday. It was a client meeting all afternoon and then dinner. So I was going to have to stay till Friday anyway. And I thought, while I was down in Florida, why don't I extend my trip a little bit more and see if anybody was available to meet up. Fortunately, friend of the show, Zach, was free. And so I kind of booked a cheap offsite hotel near Disney property and drove up on Friday and was able to meet up with Zach after that.
So I'm like, ultimately, I wish more of my work stuff happened in Florida so I would have the excuse to do stuff like this, because I travel quite a bit for work. And just this week alone, I'm in Virginia Beach, not close to Disney World. I'm in Western North Carolina, not close to Disney World. And closest I'm going to be in Atlanta the following week. And I'm thinking, oh, well, I fly down there. I fly on Sunday. I'm flying back on Thursday. I don't think I can extend my stay another couple days, because my wife would kill me. It's like, get back home now. You've been gone for 5 days already. So can't quite do that. But no, that's awesome that you're able to go down there. And I remember on Discord, you were hanging out before we get to your trip and everything else like that. This was hilarious. Maybe this is part of your story, but friend of the show, Wheezy, wanted to say hello and meet in person. You were hanging out and we started sharing pictures of us stalking you at Disney World,
which made me wonder how many phones there's pictures of me.
So back in 22, when Phil and I first met in Disney World, he was on Tom Sawyer's Island, and I was taking pictures of him and sending them to him. Here's the angle where I'm looking from. Here I am. And then funny close-up zoomed in shots or whatever. And I randomly came across them on my phone the other day, and I kind of chuckled at that. And of course, Wheezy then posted a picture of you from 20 feet behind you, whatever, sitting where you're having an adult beverage. And I'm like, aha, now we get to play Walt Disney World Stalker game. I think this is now a real thing. I think it'd be awesome. But only for you. It doesn't count for anybody else. It's only Phil when he's in Florida. Okay, so you're able to turn around and go to Disney World. You chose to go to Epcot, of course. So tell us Tell us your story. What was the trip like?
Yeah, so I got to the area about 1 p.m. or so. I wasn't able to meet up with Zach until he got off at work. We were going to meet at 5, so I had a little bit of time to kill. So after dropping my bags at the hotel, I drove over to Disney Springs and then took a bus to Wilderness Lodge because I thought we haven't been to Geyser Point in a while. That seemed like a good spot to grab some lunch. So I was hanging out there, like you said, had an adult beverage. And that was actually where Wheezy was staying at Wilderness Lodge. So when he saw me post that picture, he came on down and we had a little bit of a Discord meetup. Definitely noticed that Wheezy is taller in person than he appears on the Discord server.
Apparently everybody on the Discord server is taller.
Except for me.
Or everybody thinks you're 5'2" and you're actually much taller than that.
Exactly. But that was great. It was obviously good to see him, but also good to just chill out there. And the first part of this day, like it just kind of hit me, and I'll get to this kind of in the second part of the story, how I feel like my desire to be on Disney property is evolving from in the past. It was always like, I didn't understand people who booked like, nicer hotels and all these resort days. I was like, if I'm going to Walt Disney World, I'm going there to do the parks. Like that's what I'm spending money on. But just like, being on the bus, like right away, seeing people with like their Mickey ears and stuff like that. And then just being on property, kind of just like, I don't know, it just made me feel like happy, for lack of a better word.
Sure.
It's kind of like, I know it sounded a little sappy, but it was kind of just a nice feeling. After being at Geyser Point for a little while, I took the boat over to Magic Kingdom and then the monorail to the Polynesian. I thought maybe since I was a solo person, I could get into Trader Sam's, like sit at the bar or something, but was quoted a 3-hour wait. So then I go, okay, well, I'll just sit outside because I've never had issues getting seats at the outside area of Trader Sam's. Was also not able to find a seat out there. So apparently people were at Walt Disney World, and there is no slow time anymore. So I wound up going upstairs to the Tambu Lounge and sat at the bar there, had another adult beverage and just kind of hung out for a bit. That was nice as well. And then I walked over to the monorail and took that down to Epcot to meet up with Zach just after 5. So
before
utilized a lot of Disney transportation in those couple hours.
Well, that's always fun. I mean, that makes you happy, right? So
Exactly.
like it makes you pretend like you're on a vacation. And before you go further, I want to do, and I should have done this at the top of the show, a huge shout out to Wheezy. If you recall from our previous trip or my previous trip, I was searching for the Animal Kingdom Spirit jersey that was an extra large. Couldn't find it. There was not one on property. I went every single store you could possibly get. So Wheezy shoots me a message on Discord. Hey, I'm in the Emporium right now. I found your shirt that's an extra large. Do you want me to buy it? And of course I did. And he mailed it out today. So I wanted to do a shout out to Wheezy. So thank you very much for picking that up for me and mailing it out. And hopefully the extra large actually fits because I haven't had a chance to try one on. But they make them big. So it should at least fit like a snug sweatshirt at the very worst. But no, I'm just thankful for Wheezy and the community at large for kind of doing it because I know a lot of other people have done that for others, like pick up merch or something else like that and send it out. So much thanks for Wheezy. So before we even get deeper into that, I wanted to give him his props.
Yep, that's all great. So I said I met up with Zach right outside of the turnstiles at Epcot, and fortunately it came about because my plan was just like, hey, if you're available, let's hang out like Disney Springs or whatever. But he was able to use one of his guest passes, and he's like, well, I made a reservation for Epcot if that's okay. I was like, yeah, I think that'll be okay.
That'll fly.
So we got in there and we kind of just hung out. It was I'm going to get into a review of a few areas, but it's the first time I'd ever been at Epcot for Flower and Garden Festival. First time I'd been there since, the World Celebration and Dreamers Point area opened up. So I wanted to check that out. And obviously it was also going to be the first time I could see Luminous. So lots of new things to see, but a lot of it is just kind of wandering around and seeing it and stuff like that. So I did put it in the show notes that we only rode one ride the entire time. So we were there, a little over 4 hours and did one ride. I don't know if you could guess which ride we did.
Oh, I'm going to guess. I'm going to get, Soarin'?
Nope.
No.
Oh.
Am I keep guessing? Am I going to keep guessing? Spaceship Earth?
No, we actually were able to do Guardians.
Okay.
Zach was able to get.
But when he said 5 p.m., I assume that the virtual queues have come and gone.
Yeah, he made one in the morning for us, so that was
okay.
great. And I got a new song, which was nice. Got "Everybody Wants to Rule the World," which was Not as good as September.
I mean, September is the best. I don't
Yeah.
think I've ever gotten that one. How many times have you been on Guardians now, not with the holiday overlay from that first year?
So this was my third time
Third
without the
time.
holiday. So I got September the first two, and now I got this one. Now I got
Gotcha.
the Tears
Okay.
for Fears.
Very cool. Very cool. So, like, here, I see what you're going to review. You're going to review the festival, the middle part, and Luminous. I definitely want to. You know what? You're going to be talking about this next. I'm messing up your story. Go ahead. Go ahead. No, you got it in the right order in the notes.
Yeah. So we wandered around, and I guess, like I said, first time seeing this festival, we went to the Butterfly Garden and saw, watched a number of the topiaries, and I have to say I was really impressed with just how many things and exhibits they had out there. Like, obviously the topiaries are a big part and they're really impressive. But they had little other, like a spice garden made up with different things and kind of explained how different spices were used in smell, and a tea garden and things like that. So there's just a lot to look at and go, like, it felt like like we'd walk down a path and there'd be something else new and different that they just added for the festival. So I thought that was nice. And obviously they have still all the food booths and stuff. We did hit up a couple, so I got to try a few things, which is always nice. That's kind of what we did for dinner. But yeah, so big thumbs up for the Flower and Garden Festival. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. I thought it would be like basically food and wine with a few like topiaries or whatever. There's actually a lot more to it, and it really made the park beautiful, and it made it like even better for people who like to just wander around that park, right? It's not like going from attraction to attraction. It's kind of just everywhere you wandered around, you saw something kind of cool to look at.
All right, right now, as it stands, how would you rank Flower and Garden, Festival of Holidays, or Food and Wine?
Between those three, I would do Festival of the Holidays, then Flower and Garden, and then Food and Wine.
Is it because Food and Wine is just basically food booths and that's it?
Yeah, I mean, there's not as much left to that. Maybe if they ever go back to having all the demonstrations and the cookbook authors and stuff like that, lunch pairings like they used to do, maybe it would move up, but just doesn't feel like there's that much to it right now. And then I would also put Festival of the Arts is probably still my favorite.
But have you done that one? You haven't done that one recently, right?
No, it's been a little bit, but
that's the only reason why I brought up those three.
Because those three I've done more recently for sure. Yeah. So for over the last year, that's how I'd rank those three things. Yep.
Okay. Fair enough. I've never been to Flower and Garden. I would love to go down there because I keep seeing these pictures and they're like, these are just awesome, like works of like living art. And the only thing I'd be afraid of if I was going down there with a family vacation type of thing, would I have enough time and the time to appreciate them? Because you're there for the day, right? You're like, this is like basically a free day at Disney World, thanks to Zach, right?
Yeah.
And you have the leisure, which you're going to talk about later, to do this. I'm just wondering if you were there with your family, not saying that your family would detract from the experience, but you're there for different reasons. You're in lots of money, right? Because it's a family vacation. Would you be able to enjoy Flower and Garden the same, you think?
I think that's a good point and a good question. I think my oldest would appreciate it, and I think like we've done like the behind the scenes tour and stuff. So I think my kids do enjoy some of that, but they definitely also would want to go on rides. Like okay, this coming Thursday, right? We're doing my down and back with my son, and we're going to be at Epcot. I don't think we're going to be spending much of that time looking at topiaries, right?
Sure.
We're going to be doing rides and stuff. So I think that's a fair point that it is more geared towards people that are doing more of a leisurely stay, or maybe more adult oriented and stuff like that. So I think that's a fair point, that there's not as many activities related to it. It's kind of more appreciation of what the art is. Sure. And kind of just, like I said, wandering around and coming across what you come across. But I think, I mean, it's neat that they have it's all the characters in the topiaries and stuff. So you can almost and they do have various like scavenger hunt things too, like they do for the other festivals that I think would make the kids. I think it's Spike the Bee is hidden all over and stuff. So there are things to do to kind of entertain them and stuff. But I think it's a fair point that I probably wouldn't have less time to just kind of wander.
Right, fair enough. Family. I mean, and it's just like Food and Wine or Festival of Holidays. Festival of Holidays is just better than Food and Wine because it's the same thing, but with Christmas decorations, right?
Right.
For the most part.
And you have the storytellers, like the different holiday.
Right, but you could go through a whole day without even seeing
for sure.
them, type of thing, right? So, like a surface level, and with my kids, my oldest daughter loves trying new foods and stuff like that, so she enjoys that. But my other kids they want simple foods, right? As a 9-year-old would, or a 6-year-old. But if I were down there with, let's say, my wife, or I was down there with my mother, my wife's vegetarian, so she doesn't get to enjoy a lot of the different things at the food booths. But my mom likes that stuff. I'm just curious, to me personally, if we were able to do that and focus on that type of stuff at Epcot, is it better than, or different, I should say, not better than going with your family, and how that kind of interaction goes, family versus vacation, the vacation kind of touring of Epcot type of thing.
Yep.
So the next on your list is, I'm very excited. Well, the next two things I'm very excited to listen to, but this one specifically, because this one's more nuanced than your opinion of Luminous,
Right.
which is Dreamer's Point in World Celebration. So when you entered from the front of the park, I would imagine, correct?
Correct.
So you got to like kind of walk in, like I experienced walking in from World Showcase.
Okay.
So to me, forever now, the front of this part is coming in from World Showcase and not from Spaceship Earth, right? So I'm reversed than the front of the park. So was it starting to get dark, or was it still pretty light out when you walked in?
When we first got into it, was still pretty light out. Probably around 7-ish or so, it started to get dark. But we probably had about a couple hours of sunlight still.
So what was your initial impression? The music, the sounds, the lights, the space.
So one of my initial impressions is I did make the comment to Zach that I was like, I know I'm supposed to be like a classic Epcot fan and stuff, but I actually really like the new music loop.
Yeah.
Like kind of the theme that they play, and it feels very Epcot-y, and it kind of brings everything together. So that hit you even before you got into the Dreamer's Point section, kind of more at the front. But when we got into Dreamer's Point, I was really impressed by it. It really, we were talking to each other. We were like, we could just like kind of hang out here for like an hour and just chill and take it in and watch all the people enjoying it and stuff. I did get over and got my photo with the Walt statue and stuff. And one thing that hit me was it felt very, there were a lot of different elevations to it, that it wasn't just flat. That jumped out at me. There's the other thing, this is kind of probably contradictory, but it felt very large and wide open, but at the same time, there was a lot in it. So I don't know, there was a lot to see, a lot of different elements, a lot of different lighting. I think Zach he's like, oh, I never saw that light fixture before. Like he's been there 20 times and like was finding new things. It's just a really cool area, and it's another area to hang out and chill and relax. And I don't know, I really enjoyed it, and definitely could just. And then when it got later and the lights came on, kind of standing in that area when you see the shows on Spaceship Earth and the lights are doing the same colors as are on Spaceship Earth, it's like takes it to a whole nother level, and it's a whole different experience to have.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%, because it is a massive space, quote unquote massive space.
Yeah.
But like I felt it was like an intimate space, right? It was like Epcot was like hugging you, because it was large, but there's like nooks and crannies that you can go into. They did a very good job of making like the lower end of it opposite of the Walt statue, where it wasn't very large spaces, but like the spaces were large, but they were like, it was I don't know, fencing or foliage or those weird like tree things that are like kind of in the bottom type of thing that kind of hide but still remain open. Yeah. Right. Like, and I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. I was scared that you were going to walk into it in the music where you're like, this music stinks, I want the old stuff. And I'm like, to me, it felt Epcot to me. Yeah. But I'm not an old Epcot soul, so I don't know if that resonated with you. But
no, it definitely did. Like, it felt like it fit. And I know people miss the fountain. And I do think one other comment I had was, I saw a lot of people saying like, oh, it needs to have a water feature, like that's missing. Even I think Scott Gustin said that. And my first thought was like, don't they just have like Moana right there with like tons of water features? But you really don't notice Moana at all. Like, no, that feels completely separate. I thought that was going to be kind of like, oh yeah, there's the Moana stuff. It's, the back of the Moana, but you didn't even notice that was there. So it really does give the feeling that Moana is part of World Nature, not part of World Celebration, even though it's, sits inside the monorail loop.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I still don't think the area needs a water feature. I think that would take away from everything, in my opinion. I don't think it's needed.
Yeah, I think like a smaller one, not like a big fountain that shoots up or anything like that. But if you had something where it was kind of trickling down and that sort of thing, where it was more of a serene one, almost like the water features they have in the Japan pavilion, something more like that, I think it could fit.
Sure.
I don't think you need a big like fountain show or anything like that.
No. I mean, anything that's like shooting up water and making sound, I think would ruin the experience, especially as you're walking up the spine from World Showcase looking at Spaceship Earth. Yeah. Like anything that gets away in the way of that view plus where the Walt's sitting and stuff like that, I think that would detract from the sereneness of it. But like if they had something like a babbling brook type of thing, I guess, I don't know. I mean, I think that might be cool. Maybe that's the vibe that they're going for in Epic Universe and some of that concept art, or
Right.
the front area of the park was it's like winding streams or something
Sure.
that's going on there for sure. So Dreamers Point is thumbs up. Did you get any better views of the area that's still in in construction?
Yeah, the connections or where they're going to have the music and stuff like that.
Yep.
We walked around it, so we saw most sides, and they were definitely continuing to work on it. Zach even commented, he's like, "Oh, that they added that," and, that sort of thing. It still looks pretty far away from being complete, though. So originally I think people were thinking it might open in the first quarter.
Nope, I don't think so.
Obviously not. There's less than a month to go. So I mean, maybe by summer, I don't know. But it definitely still had, you can see progress and they're working on it, but it's definitely not close. We did talk a little bit about how it's going to work once it's open and there's bands playing. Like, how is that going to impact, like, kind of interacting with the center space and stuff? Not that it would be bad, or it's kind of like it could be good, it could be bad. Like, is it going to pull from one area to the other? So I think it'll be interesting because it'll probably change the vibe again a little bit. But yeah, so it's a pretty big space. What they've done looks nice and it looks like it'll fit. But it definitely has some time to go.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So now the most important thing is Luminous. I know you weren't ready to watch this show. I think you had to be like, "Oh, I'm here. I'm going to do it." Because I think you were building it up in your head, right?
Yep.
Like you've been trying to do a good job of. I know you've watched it, but you're like you're trying to keep the opinions fresh, and all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, I'm going to go see it tonight." So, talk about your. Did you have any anticipation, or is it like, cool, I get to see it tonight and that was it, and then you just saw it? Like, was there anything like anticipatory building up to that moment for you?
I definitely was, because I was thinking I was going to see it this week when I go down with my son, and then this kind of pre-show opportunity kind of came up. So I was like, oh, this will be cool that I get to see it and I don't have to worry about like how much, worry about my son and how, if he can see and what his thoughts, I can kind of just take it in for myself. So I did kind of have some expectations from that standpoint of like, I'm going to get a kind of just on my own, I can take it in and see what I think and stuff like that. And so, I followed Zach's advice. He likes watching from Italy. So we went over to there. So that's where we could see it. So we could see Spaceship Earth from behind and stuff like that. Yep. So that was kind of going into it. Was I had some expectations of like, here's the experience and that sort of thing. But at the same time too, it was kind of like a little unexpected. So it wasn't like I had months of build up to this moment.
Did you watch the what is it? The Clifflix version, where like this 4K version that he just put out like a couple weeks
I haven't
ago?
watched that version. No, not yet. I kind of like, I saw that and then I was like, maybe I'll wait until after I see the show in person to watch that one. I did see that one come out a week or two ago. Yeah.
That's one of the best versions of the show I've seen. He does an excellent job from multiple angles. Anyway, so you're watching from Italy. It's the first place where I watched. Were you able to watch it down towards where the gondolas were, or were you kind of back a little bit?
Yeah. So it was in that little outlet or whatever that goes out kind of near where the gondolas are. There were probably a couple rows of people in front of us, so I wasn't right at the gate, but I had a pretty clear view between people of the all the hardware and the show, and then could see Spaceship Earth behind it as well.
So I don't know if we need to go over and give your in-depth view of Luminous at this point, because that's been kind of done to death. But what was your overall take of the show, and what were some of the things that were like that much better or worse after having seen it like on the internet?
Okay.
That's a good place to start, I think.
Yeah. So my overall take of the show is that I don't think it's a very good show.
Oh my God. I'm so glad you didn't tell me this before, because this is now I'm going to have to fight you on a podcast.
Yeah.
So why don't you think it's a good show?
I think most of it was boring. I think the musical selections are uninspired. The hardware didn't really do that much. In some ways it was just distracting. The story's like kind of just forced to you, and I don't know, it didn't really feel like a connection to Epcot to me. I will say the last 5 minutes or so were good when they start doing the more fireworks and stuff like that. I did look at a video afterwards to see, okay, from that point on, which was about the last 5 minutes, but the first 12 minutes I thought were incredibly boring and
No
uninspiring.
kidding. See, did you feel this way? I know you were like on the fence with it previously, but did this just solidify that? Did it seem even worse in person?
Um, I'd say that divisiveness, I felt like the beginning part was even worse than I
Wow.
thought before, but the ending part was probably better because once I could see pretty clearly like that center barge feature and stuff like that was cool. But yeah, I noticed there was like a helicopter going by, and I'm like paying more attention to that because it was more interesting to me
Oh
than the
man.
show.
Because
I don't
I
know.
mean, like the first part of the show, to me, it's like I like the subtlety of lesser fireworks on the show and more with like the fountains and how the colors and everything kind of, it wasn't just like, oh, here's all the fireworks in your face,
Yeah,
boom, type of thing. And a lot of I mean, this is a lot of people either hate it or love it, is like the narration. I love the narration because I love it being a story that's being told to me versus just like you need to interpret like 20 songs in a row type of thing and
yeah.
try to get the message. So the fountains and everything else, all that synchronization and stuff like that, just didn't
It
pull you in, huh?
it didn't, and I even like the LEDs on the hardware I found distracting, and I don't know. I think part of it is the music choices. I really don't like the first original song. The second one I think is way better, and that's probably partly why I like the ending better. Um, I don't know. It just didn't hit me, and then the other musical things are either didn't really pull me in or have been used before. Um,
There's like one or
yeah,
two songs. I mean, I love the show. And there's like one or two songs that are like I can see them changing these out
yeah,
sometime in the next couple years to kind of as they're like tweaking it. Um, I love the two like the fast last song, original song is great. The first one's grown on me. I was I don't know average about it. I'm
yeah.
like, this is a good song, but it's not like wowing. But every time I hear it, it's great, and I love the music after the show also as you're
That was
exiting the
the
park.
one positive that, well, like I said, I did like the ending. Like if I only saw the last 5 minutes or if the whole show was like that, I would enjoy it. Like I said, I like the second original song. And then big thumbs up for the music they play like after the show when you're kind of walking out of the park. Like I want to be able to download those songs. I thought that was great.
Yeah,
So
no, man, I'm such a bummer that like the new Epcot show just fell flat
yeah.
for you, like as a big,
I mean, maybe it was
Epcot
the
person.
view. I mean, I'm certainly willing to give it another shot or whatever, but it's just not doing it for me.
Yeah, I think I think it might also depend where you stay because the one song that I could not get into at all was the duet.
Hmm.
Um, and when you watch that online, like it just doesn't go together at all.
Yeah.
And then when I was when I was there moving around a little bit, it still seemed a little bit off. But when I watched from Canada, maybe I was staying in the perfect position
Yeah.
between two different speakers or something. It sounded much better. But to me, I thought it was just I enjoyed the spectacle. I know a lot of people go to these things; they want a big, giant fireworks show and all this other type of stuff. I kind of like some when it's a little bit
Yeah,
more low
I
key.
don't know if I don't mind the subtlety. I mean, I loved Illuminations. That had a lot of quiet parts. It just didn't draw me in. It just
It was just the music.
I think
Then
the
you think,
music is the biggest part. I mean, I think like I said, obviously they used the hardware well at the end. I like that part.
right?
But I think just the music choices they used at the beginning for the first like 12 minutes or so. And I will say I like the very, very beginning when they do like the welcome or the hellos and they shoot
Yeah.
off the fire. I thought that was a neat touch to just kick it off. And when you see those fireworks coming from like behind you or next to your stuff is cool. Um,
A bummer. I'm just picturing like Clockwork Orange, where somebody's gonna tape your eyelids open and make you watch it a
Might
thousand
watch it
times, just
until I
force
like
you to
it.
like it. All right, so I mean that was pretty fun. You had some eating, you had some hanging out and stuff like that. But now I see like I'm scrolling down, and you're like, oh, for my August trip and
Yeah,
everything else. So, and of course the phrase vacation and vacation. So before we get
absolutely.
into that, I picked up on something. You said at the top of the show where your way you view Disney World or whatever is evolving. We talked
Yep.
about that quite a bit after my trip. And before we get into this, and it's your second bullet point is, continue to do the evolution of a touring style, right? Less intense, more vacation to vacation. And I feel like our way of touring is evolving at the same time. I don't know if that has to do with us doing a podcast for 4 years together, which, that anniversary is coming up. But I'm with you on this. So I'm curious to hear where this thought process is taking you and how it's going to in the future, and see if it kind of matches up with how I'm viewing things too.
Okay. Yeah. So it kind of hit me, like I said, when I was just going around property, how much I enjoyed that. And it didn't have to be a million rides. And I think part of it might also be just our experiences with like Genie Plus and stuff like that. How like when you got that, you just kind of felt like you had to get in as many rides as you could to get the most value out of it and stuff like that, versus actually just kind of enjoying being there. So when I was thinking about the trip in August, when I'm going to take my two youngest kids, we're going to be there. The plan is to be on property for 4 nights before we do our 3-day cruise. I was trying to think like maybe we should do something a little bit more relaxed, because originally I was like, we'll rent a room at Pop and we'll go to the park the 3 days in between and kind of do our normal thing. But now I'm starting to think, do we want to change that up and maybe stay at somewhere a little bit nicer, but only do 2 park days and have more like resort time and just enjoy other stuff at Disney, doing all the different transportations, enjoying pool time, the different activities they have at the resort and stuff like that. And so I did a little analysis saying, well, what would that kind of cost? Like, how does that cost comparison break down? So that's what I put in here. So like I said, my initial thought was we're going to do 4 nights at Pop, 3-day park tickets, just base tickets. I wasn't going to bother hopping with the young kids or whatever. And I priced it out with a standard view room. And for the 3 of us to go, the total was $2,128. So a little over $2,100 for the 3 of us to go for 4 nights, 3 park days. Then if we wanted to do at like Caribbean Beach, because this way we were in a 5th sleeper, so nobody would have to share a bed. Same thing, that would move it up to $2,658. So
okay,
just to give you some price. Now, at this point, what's hitting me first is how much park tickets are of the cost. Ooh, and how much cheaper it is to go with 3 people instead of 5 people.
That's a big thing. Yeah, for sure.
But then I looked at another option because I was thinking one of the main things I want to do and why we want to go in August is we're kind of working with the assumption that Tiana's Bayou Adventure is going to be open. Magic Kingdom will kind of be a focus. Was could we rent DVC points? Because when I was looking up just costing out rent, regular hotel room was really expensive at any of the monorail resorts. But I was like, well, what about renting DVC? So I looked up, and a 4-night rental at the Grand Floridian, I could rent a Lagoon View Studio for 4 nights would come out to $1,672. So about a little over $400 a night. And then if I go from 3-day tickets down to only 2 days, the tickets then would be about $800. So the grand total would be $2,479. So kind of right in between, a little bit more than Pop, a little bit less than doing Caribbean Beach, but doing only 2 days instead of 3 days. So that kind of like gave me thinking is, as we're evolving, which of these options is kind of more appealing? Because they're roughly in the same ballpark for price, right?
Right.
And so I was like, well, do we want to do something like Pop and go at the parks and really focus on the parks and the hotel is really just a place to sleep? Or do we want to have a little bit more forced, for lack of a better word, vacation in the vacation, but have nicer accommodations? Everybody has their own bed, be closer to Magic Kingdom. One of those nights would be the deluxe after hours. So we would have that going for us and that sort of thing. So I'm kind of like debating 2 different ways to do the trip for similar cost.
So relaxing, vacation and vacation. So, I mean, this is, I didn't know you were planning to go back down in August, but with only 2 of your kids. So we could talk about that later. And then you mentioned another cruise in August. Yep. Is that what you're doing? Okay.
So well, maybe just give a little bit of background on this.
Because that's news to me.
So we weren't sure what we were going to do for the kind of the big family trip this summer. My oldest got a job as or counselor training position.
Oh, that's
at
right.
The camp.
Okay.
So she's working the entire summer. So there's no time for us to do the big family trip. And it's a day camp. She's only 15, so she can't drive. So she needs somebody to drive her and pick her up every day. And so we talked to her and like, okay, we think this is really great. She had to do, fill out do a whole application, do her CV and have a formal interview and stuff like that. So it's great that she got picked for it and all that stuff. But we're like, keep in mind, because you're doing this, that means we can't do a family vacation. How would you feel if like your mother took the younger two somewhere for like a week, and then I took the younger two somewhere for a week, and then the other time, and maybe the weekends in between that the other person will take you somewhere small or something like that, but you're committing to doing this camp for the whole summer, this job, instead of doing some of the vacation things. And she was okay with it. I will say now that we're doing some more of the planning and she's seeing some of the excitement, she's probably a little less okay. But at first she was like, no, the camp is really important to me. She has some good friends that'll be there and stuff like that. And she was okay with it. So my wife's planning a trip with the kids, and then I'm planning a trip with the kids, and getting off the last cruise. My son especially was like, I want to get on another Royal Caribbean ship. So we're going to go do a 3-day cruise. And then, so it'll be a week total. So we'll be doing 4 days at Walt Disney World and then a 3-day cruise,
very cool.
which is right out of Port Canaveral. So right near there. So.
Oh, very nice. Okay. So, back to the vacation and your evolution. Did it hit you, the vacation bug? Did that hit you after this Epcot trip, or did this evolution start with your last August trip?
I think it started with that, and kind of the whole how we didn't do Genie Plus some days and other days we didn't. It was more relaxing. We had a sort of an off day where we only did the party at night, but I think it was reinforced through this day at Epcot that was like, I just like being on property. It's not even just the parks. And I will also say, excuse me, the tooth trick. Matt Pato on his podcast recently had a trip to Disneyland, and he was talking about how, like, and it just reminded me how different Walt Disneyland is than Walt Disney World is, and how Disneyland really is just the theme parks. Whereas Walt Disney World, it's marketed as the vacation kingdom of the world. There's so much more to do there. Sometimes I forget about that, and I kind of wanted to think about more of the other options.
So here's my thing. So with the vacation, the reason why I asked this question was at Epcot, you're there for very little investment. It's just you, right? You got to go for a half a day. There's no pressure to get your money's worth, the Genie Plus crunch, you're there with your family, or you don't know when you're going to come back, blah, blah, blah. You know that you were there in August and you're going again in a week, and then you're going again in August for a couple days. So you don't have that crunch of like, I need to go on my favorite rides because this is what I got to do when I go there. I have to, to me personally, I think that might have more of an impact on like, the FOMO, the fear of missing out when you're on a really expensive trip. Cause you're like, I've always done Disney. Like, to me, the way I think about it is, if I'm at Disney World and this is the big family trip, and I got to do all the things that brought me all the good vibes and the good feels and the good photos. My last trip, you're always chasing that nostalgia, right? You're either recreating it, or maybe you didn't quite get it, but last time, but you're going to get it back this time, type of thing, right? You're always chasing that. And so you're always fearful of not doing exactly what you did last time, because it might be a worse trip and you don't know when you're coming back, and it costs you $8,000 and all that other anxiety. So this time you did this, you had none of that pressure, and you just actually were able to just enjoy yourself.
Right.
and then all of a sudden you're like, oh dude, it's like, you mean I don't have to do 5 million rides and get this, and I don't have to have a spreadsheet. I can just be happy being here.
Exactly.
And I was kind of getting those vibes again going in 22. Like, every time I go, I plan less and less, right? The strategy for rope dropping is not as drastic as it used to be. The planning with fast passes are not as big. You just kind of show up now, right? You have a game plan, but you just kind of show up. And our last trip, we got to like Epcot like midday. Wasn't freaking out about rope. Didn't rope drop Magic Kingdom that morning. Not that it was still intense, but it wasn't as intense. And we only did Genie Plus really the one day at Magic Kingdom, and it stunk. But like, for me, it really felt like, I don't have to do it like I did it last time, and I can have a good experience. So I think once people start realizing that the FOMO of like planning different things and having to do these certain things, that if you don't do it, it's okay. You have permission to have fun without your favorite ADR or experiencing pirates for the 100th time, though that is probably a crime not to do pirates if you're at Magic Kingdom, but that's a personal thing. But I'm curious, is like that FOMO like alleviated by experiencing it without having to do it?
I mean, there's definitely part of that, and specifically probably for Epcot. You know, I got this day at Epcot. We're doing Epcot again this week. It'll make it easier for me not to do Epcot in August. You know, that sort of a thing. So I do think the fact that we've been a few times makes it easier to kind of cut a day off or whatever. But I do think it also is just that evolution and just saying it's okay to just enjoy yourself and not get in every last ride that you possibly can, and that there is more to the vacation at Walt Disney World than just the parks and the rides and stuff like that. So I think it's more that evolution, but because of these days I'm having kind of these one-off things, it's probably making it easier
Yep.
to accept that and do it this year.
So let me ask you this then. So let's pretend your August trip that you're planning is not like you and your two youngest kids. It's basically a whole family vacation, right?
Yeah.
It's a week down at Disney. You're going to the parks 5 days or whatever it is. You know, it's a big thing. How does your park days change based on this philosophy now? How do you expect that to change your behavior? I'm not talking about adding a resort day here and there, that type of thing. Let's say, assuming you do that, right? But the actual park days, how does your behavior at the parks change?
I think we saw that even last August versus the trip before, when I was really pushing people to get out and get to rope drop and stuff like that.
Right.
Then this past August, it was like, I'm not fighting them. I'm not going to like force them like to be miserable. Like, you know, they want to sleep in, we'll sleep in. We get to the park at 11, we get to the park at 11, you know, the parks will be there again.
Sure.
And so I think we definitely saw that evolution there. And I think it's more picking out the couple things we want to do and making sure we get those done. And if we don't get on a ride that we've been on 17 times before, it's okay. So I think we saw a little bit of that last August, and maybe that's where it is, where that was enjoyable, you know, that to let go a little bit. And like you said, not fight with the spreadsheets and stuff like that, just to kind of go with the flow a little bit more and still having a good time is a little freeing, I guess. So I'm growing as a person.
Yes, you are. You're making steps. You're a better person today than you were a year ago, which is more than we can ask of anybody, right? Always be improving. So I'm really curious how this kind of your evolution, because I don't know when the next time I'm going to Disney World, right? It's more likely than not May of 2025.
And maybe I should add too, like, we didn't have plans of doing like a trip really to Walt Disney World this year, so I'm almost viewing this August trip as like a bonus time.
A bonus trip.
Yeah, so it's a little easier, I think, not to just say whatever we get done, it was a bonus, right? So I think that makes it a little easier too.
Which is funny because this is the same evolution my sister went through, but years ago. As like she was a gung ho tourer, right? Commando, get in, maybe not rope drop because that was never her style, but like knowing where everything is, planning everything out. These boom, 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 boom. And now she just resort only stays with her family and on her DVC points and just kind of like chills or whatever. Now she's mostly Disney Cruise Line for the most part, but it's interesting when you go enough. I think it all has to do. There's a couple different downward pressures to force people to relax. It's, you know, when you finally get rid of that FOMO type of thing, and also Genie Plus. I'm just making it such a headache. You're forcing people to like, I'm not participating in that rat race anymore. So I get that. Anything else you wanted to add from your future plans or your trip down there for a day?
No, I think I covered it well. Just really, it's nice to see Epcot open and just being able to enjoy it and not have to walk through a maze of walls and stuff like that. So it's really becoming, I know everyone says like, maybe it's not as grandiose as the original plans were, but it's making for a really enjoyable time at a theme park that's, you know, not just about rides and stuff like that. So I'm happy to see it.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely with you. A couple rumors that are going around we wanted to touch on, and we're towards the end of the show, and so I'm just gonna buzz right by them, or right through them. Excuse me. The first one, this was about a week and a half ago. Some drones were taking flight over Disney World. And that's again, I think were they at Disney Springs? I don't recall exactly where they were. They were just shown on the property somewhere. You were not enthused by drones. I don't know why.
It's not that
I'm
I'm not
excited.
enthused about them. I think if Disney, and I have confidence Disney, if they ever use them, will use them well and in a creative manner. I mean, we've seen them at Disneyland Paris and the things they've done. I just feel like drones have been around for so while. A lot of places have them. Dollywood does them and stuff like that. It's just not as impressive or as amazing sounding as when it was first being talked about for Disney like years and years ago, and it was like, oh, this is going to be a new technology and blah blah blah. So I think it's just one of those things that's been talked about for so long that it's kind of like, okay, if it gets here, it gets here, and if they use them, they use them. But I'm just not as focused or as
Gotcha.
I don't know. Yeah,
I'm just excited about a new form of entertainment, right?
Yeah.
I think we're going to get a ton of it next year. I'm just excited that they're trying something new, and it's not my next Disney World trip is not going to be the same as the last two coming out of the
yeah. So I mean,
pandemic type of thing.
I'm definitely excited about them trying something new, whether it's drones or something else. I think just drones specifically aren't as impressive on a concept as it was, say, 5 years ago.
And then the next rumor was a tweet from Jim Schul, former was he director at Imagineering? I forget what his exact.
I forget exact title, but yeah, he oversaw a number of ride developments.
He
and
did
stuff
Toy
in
Story
Imagineering.
Land. He did a lot of stuff overseas and the other parks like that. So
Yeah.
he was not just your run of the mill Imagineer. He was a very he has some pelts on the wall for some of the stuff that he was able to do. But no, former Imagineer, he's retired. He had a tweet says Magic 8 Ball says the future promises Indiana Jones and Encanto and tropical. I'm assuming America Land and Animal Kingdom, and the loop around Rivers of America is Magic Kingdom is Zootopia, Moana, and A Villain's Land. So that's his current rumors. I don't know how much Jim actually knows. I get a sense that a lot of times he's just guessing at a lot of this stuff.
So I'm not sure about that. I mean, it was just interesting because obviously, I think the Indiana and Encanto stuff is what everyone's expecting. I just thought seeing the names of the ones around Magic Kingdom being different than before, and some of them kind of jumped out at me. So I don't know if he's hearing anything or if he's just guessing, or if it's kind of like, well, we know these properties are going to go somewhere, so this is probably where I think they'll wind up. But I don't know. I'm not really a fan of Zootopia or Moana being in the Beyond Big Thunder area.
I mean, I don't mind them being over there, but it has to be. I don't want IP lands in Magic Kingdom. It needs to be another like Villains Land. Awesome idea, right? But that's not a single IP. But Zootopia is a single IP. I don't want to see skyscrapers.
I think that's my
Magic
biggest
Kingdom.
worry is that like you're on one side of the Rivers of America and you can see like the Zootopia skyline on the other side. Or I don't know.
Yeah, not a good look. So we'll see about that. But I think Moana, and we're gonna. I think we should save this one for next week. DSNY is a great YouTube channel. He put out like a whole armchair Imagineering thing about where does Moana go and stuff like that in Magic Kingdom. I think that has a really good chance of being really cool there as long as it kind of blends in with everything, right? It's just not here's Moana Land type of thing. It's like an attraction and a continuation of like Adventureland or something else like that. I think that would be really cool. All right, so we got a little bit of time left. We need to play this game, Phil. I think we need to play it. It was my fantastic idea. So I asked you last week, and I want you to go first. What are your top 3 restaurants that you want to convert their menu to breakfast for dinner? Right. So everybody loves pancakes or omelets for dinner, that type of thing. Everybody loves that idea. So which 3 quick service, table service, whatever it might be, are you converting their dinner menu to a breakfast menu?
Okay. So I have to say, when you first put this out there, I was struggling for a bit. Not that I didn't think it was a good idea. Like, I think it's a good idea. I just really struggled with where to do it.
Sure.
But I think I kind of like my answers, especially my first one, which is to change up Chef Mickey's to being this format of dinner all day or breakfast all day, whether you go at breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and changing it up from being like Chef Mickey to being like all the characters in their pajamas. And almost making it like a sleepover type thing, and you're coming out to have breakfast with Mickey, and you can wear your pajamas and stuff like that. I think that would be a fun change to that space.
Does anybody really like going to Chef Mickey's lunchtime or later? Because this is biased because I've only gone for breakfast and brunch before. Every time I see somebody's story or trip report about Chef Mickey's, it's something about with waffles, eggs, and bacon or something else like that. I don't think I've ever seen pictures of like dinner.
We did dinner there once. I think it was like our arrival day, and I'd always heard the food wasn't great. I actually thought it was maybe it was the bar had been set low in my my head, but I thought the food was actually pretty good.
Okay.
For a buffet. And you get to see the characters and stuff, but it's just kind of hectic and crazy,
Yeah.
and it's
It's
nothing
all out
special.
in the
And,
open.
yeah.
It's loud
Yeah.
and stuff like that, right? All right. What's your next one?
The next one I thought of was Coral Reef, partly because I just think that restaurant needs a refurb in general, and kind of how it's all carpeted and you can see the fish and stuff. And I don't know. I thought like the idea of kind of being cozy and kind of having homey breakfast and stuff. And then the other reason is it always felt weird to me that they had like you're looking at fish while you're eating fish.
Right.
Kind of felt a little weird. So this way you can have, instead just do pancakes and stuff like that while you're watching the fish go by. And the other one I thought of was Sunshine Seasons in the Land Pavilion. I think that has a pretty good menu. It's not quite as good as it used to be. But I thought the idea is they could then start having chickens that they raise like in the Land Pavilion, maybe even see them from Living with the Land or something like that. And then you can have all the eggs and stuff like that
Oh, that's cool.
from the chickens that they raise on the Land Pavilion.
Sunshine Seasons would make sense to serve like breakfast at dinner time, right? It's sunshine, it kind of. I've never been to Coral Reef, so I don't have a comment on that. But like eating the fish that you're watching swimming around might be a great thing for some people, or kind of nerve-wracking for others. I don't know. There's probably a lot of fishermen out there that wouldn't mind doing that. So I think those are good. I like those ideas. I chose a couple of different ones that I think, there's ulterior motives to some of these. So my first one is Be Our Guest. I do not want to pay I want to eliminate all prefix menus, right? So the idea of this, you eliminate a prefix menu and you put some really delicious food that you could go access at nighttime, and hopefully it's slightly more or slightly less expensive than was it $70 something a person now for beer? I guess $68, something like that. So I would love that kind of option at the Magic Kingdom, and potentially maybe it's a fancy breakfast and it's not just like a buffet breakfast. So I'll even accept a $50 breakfast for dinner type of thing at Be Our Guest, as long as the prefix menu goes away. The second one that I have is Friar Nook. Like this is like the last two trips. This is my go-to breakfast at Magic Kingdom. Like we do like rope drop. Like I think we rope drop, went on a ride, and then went right to Friar Nook and sat there for. We quote unquote wasted our rope drop time to go have some awesome tater tots at Friar Nook. So I would love to be able to eat that food year round. It's like that's probably a really good quick service spot for breakfast food. Not that it's anything fancy. I mean, it's still like just eggs and meat, and like the last time we went was had a pretzel bun on it. But it was very delicious. I would like to have that for dinner. And then the last one is Marrakesh in the Moroccan Pavilion in Epcot. This restaurant needs to open back up again, and I would love kind of like a spicy, well-seasoned, interesting like breakfast food that's just not your typical American fare. And I would love to have that kind of. I don't even know if like breakfast is like a big meal at Morocco. I don't know like what their typical breakfast is. I probably sort of researched that, but I'm picturing like what I was hoping Boma to be. Because Boma was good food, but it wasn't like they didn't have a lot of different flavors that I was expecting for their breakfast buffet. I was hoping for more of like really good Tusker House flavor, but for breakfast, and not just like your standard like Mickey waffles and eggs and that type of thing. So Marrakesh, A, you're opening up a restaurant again, and B, making it slightly different. Though I don't think that would ever happen, but I think that would be cool.
Yeah,
probably. Those are my three.
It's an interesting concept. I think it'd be neat, even if it wasn't breakfast all day, but if they had some of the more, because not a lot of the World Showcase isn't open super early, right? So having some of those restaurants, be it there or in Japan Pavilion or China Pavilion or something like that, that would at least just did breakfast, I think would be interesting, because get some different flavors and like you said, you're not even really sure what they eat for breakfast, in those parts of the world. Getting to experience that might be interesting to some people.
Because the only time I really eat a good breakfast is when I'm on vacation. My daily life, I don't eat. I have like a cup of coffee and I'm out the door and I'm done. Or I don't eat anything and it's like 10:30 and I have like a granola bar or something. Right. That. So, a breakfast meal to me is always like a big family event, like it's, Christmas morning or something else like that, or vacation. So breakfast has like vacation all over it on me. All right, Phil, what do we do for this DBC engagement question? So last week we asked, you have $10,000 to spend on a family vacation using the price points from our last trip about Royal, Disney Cruise Line, and Walt Disney World. How would you spend your week? Would you just do it on the land, or would you just cruise? Would you split it up? You're actively doing this again on August, so I think you've answered this question.
Pretty much.
As part of the story, so you're splitting.
Split it,
I think I would do the same because I don't know. I've never done a cruise. I would like to try a cruise, but I don't know if I want to do it like a 7-day cruise, because what if like day 2 I hate it and that type of thing. So I think kind of like splitting it up would be really neat. So I'm down there for that. The community kind of, I think what did they split on this? No one really cared about this because you're like, I have $10,000. I'm just going to go to Disney World and just kind of do that. And that was kind of the answer, because there's not a lot of people that have experienced cruises or whatever, or they're trying.
And then they got onto like they would do trips to like Washington D.C. and up and down the East Coast. I'm like, that wasn't the question.
It's not what you would do with $10,000. I would pay a lot of bills if you just handed me $10,000 right now. But this is to spend on vacation. So that's it. So next week, hopefully, we're going to be a little bit more fun, and I'm going to ask people. And Phil, you came up with this one. I think this is a really good one because we saved the story for next week also, so we can kind of lump it all together.
Yep.
We want you guys to armchair Imagineer a Moana attraction, what park it would go in, where it would go, and kind of all the other stuff that goes along with it, right? So I would like for everybody that's participating in this engagement question to go on Google Maps and flip on satellite view. And if I don't know how well you guys can use MS Paint, Photoshop, or whatever, but draw in the area you want this to go so it actually fits. Like you need to say whatever. You don't have to. You could just say, I want like a log flume ride, and I would stick it here. That's acceptable because that's kind of interesting where you would put it and how would you do it. But we want theme, at least the type of ride. If you want to go in depth and actually describe the ins and outs of the ride, that's cool. But I think we're most likely looking for the type of the ride. You have here the key elements, like the key elements of like Tiana's is the drop, right? Like it's a log flume ride with a drop.
Like what features would it have? Like what kind of like would it just tell the story of the movie, or would it be like a new adventure, or kind of what would the ride flow be and stuff?
Yeah, so we want just the top level, one sentence, the type of ride it's going to be. But I would love to see somebody pull up maps and actually draw on the map where it's going to be. So this is going to be a little bit of a visual engagement question. And I don't know how this is going to look on a audio medium next week, but we're going to go over that.
That's why everyone has to join Discord.
Yes, very good point. I know there was a reason why I was saying that. So yes, hop on Discord, help answer this question, and then we'll go through that. All right, Phil, I think that was that's a show, unless I forgot something. As usual, nope, I didn't. Excellent. Yep. We want to thank everybody for participating. Hopefully, this engagement question is more fun for you guys. And we'll go from there. All right, Phil, welcome back, and you're off on your way again. Oh, are we gonna? Here's a question before I end. Are we actually having a show next week? Because I'm gone Sunday morning. You are coming back Saturday evening.
No, Friday evening.
Friday evening.
Or Friday midday, really. So I could even do probably a show Friday evening if you want.
Okay, so we're gonna figure that out because I know I've got a lot of stuff on Saturday all sandwiched together because it's anyway.
We'll figure
it stinks when everything's so. Anyway, if there isn't a show next week, we're taking the week off. If there's a show, it might be a solo show or it might be a Friday night show. I don't know. Hopefully, we'll have something for you guys. That being said, we will see you next time, whenever that may be, and have a great week, folks. Take care.